Welcome back to Yesterday Revisited. I am Amelia, and I will be your host today. Today, we're stepping into our time machine to experience something truly fascinating. A complete day in the life of an American housewife in the 1950s. Before we begin, imagine something. No smartphones, no dishwashers in most homes, no microwaves, no wash and wear fabrics. And yet, the standards for homemaking were somehow higher than ever. The 1950s housewife wasn't just running a home. She was expected to be a domestic engineer, a fashion plate, a gourmet cook, and a perpetually cheerful hostess, all while making it look absolutely effortless. So grab your apron and your best smile, because we're about to spend an entire day in 1955. Trust me, you're going to need a nap after this. Morning routine. 6 a.m. The wake-up call. Our day begins at 6 a.m. sharp. And no, there's no snooze button on that wind-up alarm clock jangling on the nightstand. The 1950s wife rises before everyone else in the household. This is non-negotiable. According to the popular homemaking guides of the era, a good wife never lets her husband see her without her face on or in curlers. So even though she's exhausted, maybe she was up late finishing the ironing or waiting for teenage Betty to come home from the sock hop, she quietly slips out of bed, careful not to wake her husband. And this isn't just social custom, it's actual, published advice. The 1954 textbook Guide to Good Housekeeping literally instructed women, rise early to prepare breakfast and ensure your appearance is immaculate before your husband awakens. Some women even slept in full makeup. I am not kidding. 6:15 a.m., making herself presentable. After a quick wash, and remember most homes had only one bathroom, she removes those pin curls or rollers, brushes out her hair into that perfect coiffed style, and applies her makeup. Foundation, powder, lipstick at minimum. The shade, probably Fire and Ice by Revlon or Pink Lightning by Max Factor. Red lips weren't just fashionable, they were practically mandatory. Then she'd get dressed. And we're not talking about yoga pants and a hoodie. We're talking about a coordinated outfit. A day dress, nylon secured with a garter belt, low heels, maybe a pearl necklace, and of course, the apron. The apron was the 1950s housewife's superhero cape. But unlike our modern aprons that we throw on when we're actually cooking, the 1950s housewife wore hers from morning until after dinner dishes were done. And not just any apron. It had to be a pretty one. Ruffled, embroidered, color coordinated with her dress. Because you never knew when a neighbor might pop by, or the fuller brush man might come to the door. 6:45 a.m. Breakfast preparation. By 6:45, she's in the kitchen starting breakfast. And this is where we need to talk about expectations, because they were intense. A typical 1950s breakfast wasn't cereal from a box. We're talking eggs, bacon, or sausage, toast made from scratch bread, fresh squeezed orange juice, hot coffee, and maybe pancakes or waffles. Everything is made from scratch because processed foods, while becoming more available, were still viewed with some suspicion. Plus, convenience foods were actually more expensive than raw ingredients. Let me paint you a picture of this kitchen. The refrigerator is about half the size of what we have today. No frost-free feature. So she has to defrost it manually every few weeks. A several-hour ordeal involving pans of hot water and lots of towels. The stove? Likely electric by 1955, though many homes still had gas. Either way, temperature control is an art form. Those vintage ovens didn't have accurate thermometers. Most families didn't have a dishwasher. Only about 9% of American homes had one in 1955. So everything, and I mean everything, was washed by hand. 7:15 a.m., serving breakfast. The children come down to breakfast around 7:15. They're dressed in their school clothes, the girls in neat dresses or skirts, the boys in pressed trousers and collared shirts. No jeans allowed in most schools. Mom serves everyone, making sure each plate is perfectly arranged. She pours the juice, butters the toast, and keeps the coffee flowing. And here's a detail that always gets me. She probably isn't sitting down to eat with them. She's still cooking, serving, cleaning up spills, packing lunches, and making sure everyone has what they need. 7:45 a.m., husband's departure. At 7:45, her husband comes down, fully dressed in his suit and tie. In the 1950s, about 60% of American men wore suits to work every day. The uniform of the organization man. She's already set his place at the table with the morning newspaper, probably the local paper and maybe Life magazine or Reader's Digest. According to those homemaking guides we mentioned earlier, this is a crucial moment. She's supposed to be cheerful, ensure his breakfast is hot and ready, and send him off with an encouraging word. The 1955 Good Housekeeping's Guide to a Happy Marriage actually advised, greet your husband with a smile and never burden him with complaints or problems at breakfast. His day should begin on a positive note. The toxic positivity was real, folks. She walks him to the door, hands him his briefcase and hat. Yes, men still wore hats every day, gives him a kiss goodbye, and waves from the doorway as he drives off or walks to the bus stop. 8:15 a.m. Children off to school. Next, the children head out. If they're young, she might walk them to school or to the bus stop. If they're older, they walk together with neighborhood kids. Schools in the 1950s often didn't start until 9 a.m., but kids needed to leave early enough to walk the distance. Very few children were driven to school. That wasn't yet a common practice. She makes sure their hair is combed, faces are clean, homework is packed, and lunchboxes are in hand, complete with that thermos of milk or soup. And then, at around 8:30 a.m., the house is finally quiet. She's been up for 2.5 hours. She's already cooked and served breakfast, cleaned up the kitchen, remember by hand, gotten multiple people out the door, and the real work of her day. It's just beginning. Morning chores. 8:30 a.m. Kitchen cleanup and planning. First priority, finishing the breakfast dishes. In a pre-dishwasher world, this meant filling the sink with hot sudsy water and washing every dish, glass, pan, and piece of silverware by hand. Then drying everything and putting it away. An average family breakfast created about 30 to 40 items to wash. This took roughly 20 to 30 minutes, 3 times a day. While her hands are in the soapy water, she's already planning the rest of her day. What needs to be done today? What's for dinner? Does she need to go to the market? And yes, there were actual schedules. Many women followed a strict weekly routine. Monday, washing, Tuesday, ironing, Wednesday, mending and marketing, Thursday, cleaning upstairs, Friday, cleaning downstairs, Saturday, baking, Sunday, rest, This wasn't just tradition, it was considered the most efficient way to manage a household. 9 a.m. Monday is wash day. Let's say it's Monday, which means it's laundry day. Now, by 1955, about 80% of American homes had a washing machine, usually a wringer washer or one of the newer automatic models. But let's be clear, this isn't throwing clothes in and pressing a button. First, she sorts the laundry by color and fabric type. Then she treats stains individually with a bar of Fell's Naphtha soap or a paste of detergent. Whites go first, because they require the hottest water and the most vigorous washing. She fills the machine with hot water, manually in many models, adds the detergent, and feeds the clothes in. If she has a wringer washer, she has to stand there and feed each item through those rollers to squeeze out the water. This was actually dangerous. There were frequent injuries from hands getting caught in the wringer. Then the clothes go into a rinse water tub, through the wringer again, and then outside to the clothesline. If she has one of the newer automatic washers, it's easier, but the cycles are long, 45 minutes to an hour per load, and she still has to hang everything to dry. Dryers existed, but were rare. Only about 20% of homes had one. 10 a.m., hanging laundry. Hanging laundry is an art. Clothes have to be hung properly or they'll wrinkle terribly or stretch out of shape. Sheets go on the outside lines, underwear on the inside where neighbors won't see it. She uses wooden clothespins, carried in a cute little clothespin bag that hangs on the line with her. This task alone takes about an hour for a family of four's weekly wash, and if it rains, everything has to be taken down immediately and dried inside, which means damp clothes draped over furniture. Here's a fun fact. In many neighborhoods, there was a social stigma to having laundry out on any day except Monday. If your sheets were still flapping on Wednesday, the neighbors would talk. Did you see Margaret's laundry still out? What could she possibly be doing that she can't keep to the schedule? The judgment was real. 11 a.m., beds and bedrooms. While laundry is hanging, she moves on to making the beds. And I don't mean pulling up a comforter. Beds were made with military precision. Bottom sheet with hospital corners, top sheet, blanket, bedspread, decorative pillows arranged just so. Many women change their sheets twice a week. That's a lot of bed making. And remember those bedspreads. They were often heavy chenille, or quilted numbers that had to be smoothed perfectly. No wrinkles allowed. While in each bedroom, she tidies up, puts away clothes, dusts surfaces, empties wastebaskets, and opens windows for fresh air. The belief in airing out the house was strong in the 1950s. 11:30 a.m. Quick appearance check. Before lunch, she checks her appearance in the mirror. Has her lipstick worn off? Is her hair still neat? She might need to touch up her makeup and smooth her dress. Why? Because lunch is coming, and if she has school-age children, some might be walking home for lunch. Yes, that was common in the 1950s. Plus, the mailman is due any minute, or a neighbor might stop by, or a salesman could ring the bell. The expectation was that she should look presentable at all times. The pressure to maintain appearances wasn't just external, it was internalized. Many women felt genuinely uncomfortable being seen undone, even in their own homes. Midday. 12 p.m. Lunch preparation. Lunchtime meant another round of cooking. If the children came home from school, she'd prepare something simple, but hot. Grilled cheese sandwiches and tomato soup from scratch, or maybe tuna melts or egg salad sandwiches with carrot sticks. If she's alone, she might have leftovers or a light salad, but she still sets a proper place for herself, plate, napkin, silverware. Eating over the sink was considered slovenly. But here's what always amazes me. Even for a simple lunch, she's setting the table, serving properly, and then washing all the dishes again afterward. That's the third round of dishes she's washing by hand today, and she hasn't even started dinner yet. 12:45 p.m. The afternoon schedule. After lunch cleanup, she has a few hours before the children return from school. This time is precious and carefully allocated. On Tuesday, this time is devoted to ironing, and we'll get to that in a moment. On Wednesday, it might be mending and darning socks, sewing on buttons, or fixing a fallen hem. On Thursday, grocery shopping or running errands. Other days might involve deeper cleaning tasks, washing windows, scrubbing floors, polishing silver, or organizing closets. 1 p.m. The ironing marathon, Tuesday. Let's talk about Tuesday's ironing, because this deserves its own segment. In the 1950s, almost everything needed to be ironed. Sheets, pillowcases, tablecloths, napkins, underwear, handkerchiefs, every piece of clothing, even tea towels. This wasn't a 20-minute task. For a family of four, ironing could take 4 to 6 hours. Some women spent the entire afternoon and evening ironing. The iron itself was heavy, about 3 pounds, and had to be heated to the right temperature by trial and error. Too hot, you'd scorch the fabric. Too cool, the wrinkles wouldn't come out. And there were no permanent press fabrics yet. Cotton dresses had to be ironed while still damp, which meant sprinkling clothes with water from a bottle and rolling them up to distribute the moisture evenly. Women would stand at the ironing board for hours, in heels and full makeup, pressing every item to perfection. Many women ironed while watching their new television sets. Shows like The Guiding Light or As the World Turns kept them company during this tedious task. 2 p.m. Errands and marketing, Wednesday, Thursday. On marketing days, she'd head to the grocery store. This was much more involved than our modern one-stop shopping. First, there was the butcher for meat, then the produce stand, the bakery for bread, though many women still baked their own, Now, maybe the fish market on Fridays if the family was Catholic. Shopping was done several times a week because refrigerators were small and food spoiled quickly without modern preservatives. She probably didn't drive herself, only about 50% of American women had driver's licenses in 1955. Many families had only one car anyway, which the husband took to work. So she either walked to neighborhood shops, took the bus, or waited until the weekend to shop with her husband driving. She carried string bags or a shopping basket because plastic bags didn't exist yet. Everything had to be carried home. 3 p.m. Children's return from school. Around 3 or 3:30 p.m., the children arrive home from school. Mom is there to greet them, freshly lipsticked, dressed smooth, smile in place. She's prepared an after-school snack, maybe milk and homemade cookies, apple slices with peanut butter, or crackers and cheese. While they eat, she asks about their day, checks homework, and makes sure they change out of school clothes into play clothes before going outside. The 1950s ideal was that mom was always there when kids came home. Working mothers existed. About 30% of mothers worked outside the home, but they faced significant social judgment. The prevailing belief was that a mother's place was in the home, and that children needed her presence for proper development. Afternoon into evening, 3:30 p.m., supervising children and starting dinner prep. With children home, she's now splitting her attention between monitoring their activities and beginning dinner preparation. If they're young, she might help with homework at the kitchen table while she peels potatoes. If they're older, she's keeping an ear out while they play outside or do chores. Yes, children had daily chores. Boys might mow the lawn or take out trash. Girls helped with dishes and set the table. This was considered essential training for their future roles. 4 p.m., serious dinner, preparation begins. Dinner in the 1950s was a serious affair. This was the main meal of the day, and expectations were high. A proper 1950s dinner included a protein. Meat was served at nearly every dinner. A starch, potatoes, rice, or noodles. 2 vegetables. Bread and butter. Dessert, coffee for the adults, milk for the children. Everything was made from scratch. Potatoes were peeled, vegetables were trimmed and cooked, meat was seasoned and prepared, desserts were baked that afternoon. Let me show you some typical 1950s recipes. Here's one for company pork chops from a 1954 Better Homes and Gardens cookbook. The pork chops are browned, then baked in the oven with a sauce made from cream of mushroom soup with rice on the side, green beans with almonds, a gelatin salad, fresh rolls, and pineapple upside-down cake for dessert. This is not a 30-minute meal, people. This is a 2-hour production, minimum. And here's the thing. This level of cooking happened every single night. Sunday dinner might be even more elaborate, pot roast with all the trimmings, or a whole chicken or ham. She's moving between multiple tasks, checking the oven, stirring pots, setting timers in her head because many kitchens didn't have timer clocks yet. The kitchen is hot, no central air conditioning in most homes, and the oven has been going for an hour. 5:15 p.m. The table setting. While dinner cooks, she sets the table. Not just laying out plates, we're talking about a proper table setting. Tablecloth or placemats. Plates, salad plates, bread plates, forks on the left, knife and spoon on the right, water glasses, milk glasses for children, napkins folded neatly. Some women folded them into decorative shapes. The table might have a centerpiece, fresh flowers in summer, a decorative bowl in winter. This formality at every meal wasn't about showing off. It was considered proper training for children in etiquette and manners, and a way of showing respect for the family and the food. The 1950s was big on order, routine, and doing things the right way. 5:30 p.m. The final countdown. At around 5:30, with dinner nearly ready, she takes a crucial break to freshen up. She checks her hair, reapplies lipstick, maybe changes her apron for a cleaner one or removes it entirely. Some women even change into a fresh dress for dinner. The infamous 1955 Housekeeping Monthly article, which by the way was likely satire but reflected real attitudes, advised wives to touch up your makeup, put a ribbon in your hair, and be fresh-looking. He has just been with a lot of work-weary people. Be a little gay and a little more interesting. His boring day may need a lift. The pressure to be perpetually cheerful and attractive was intense. 5:45 p.m. Husband's arrival. At around 5:45 or 6 p.m., she hears the car in the driveway or the key in the lock. The children might run to greet Daddy. She appears from the kitchen, smiling to welcome him home. According to the social codes of the time, his arrival was an event. The household revolved around his schedule. That same controversial article instructed, greet him with a warm smile and show sincerity in your desire to please him. Listen to him. Let him talk first. Remember, his topics of conversation are more important than yours. Yeah, let's just sit with that for a moment. Evening. 6 p.m. Dinner is served. Dinner is served promptly at 6 p.m. The family sits together, father at the head of the table, mother usually closest to the kitchen so she can jump up for anything needed. Grace might be said, depending on the family's religious practices. She serves the food, making sure everyone's plate is properly arranged. Father is served first, then the children. Then she serves herself if she sits down at all. Many women spent dinner hopping up and down, refilling water glasses, bringing more bread, retrieving forgotten items, cutting up food for small children. Family dinner was sacred in the 1950s. The television was off. Families didn't get TV trays and eat in front of the television until the 1960s generally. This was time for conversation, for father to hear about the children's days, for family bonding. At least that was the ideal. The reality, of course, varied from family to family. 6:45 p.m. Dishes again. After dinner comes the fourth, round of dishes for the day. This is the biggest cleanup, serving dishes, plates, glasses, silverware, pots, and pans. For a family dinner, we're talking about 50 to 60 items to wash by hand. If she has a teenage daughter, she might help. This was considered essential training for the daughter's future role as a housewife. Sons, in most families, were excused after dinner to do homework or relax. The gender roles were not subtle. This evening dish session could take 45 minutes to an hour, especially if she's also wiping down counters, sweeping the floor, and putting away leftovers. And remember, that refrigerator is small. Leftovers have to be carefully arranged, and anything that won't fit has to be creatively repurposed for tomorrow's lunch or dinner. 7:30 p.m. Family time. With dishes done, the family might settle in for the evening. By 1955, about 2/3 of American homes had a television set. Popular evening shows included I Love Lucy, The Honeymooners, Gunsmoke, and The Ed Sullivan Show on Sundays. While the family watches TV, she might be darning socks, mending clothes, or knitting. Her hands are rarely idle. Alternatively, children might do homework while father reads the newspaper and mother writes letters. Email didn't exist, so keeping up with distant family meant weekly letter writing. The 1950s suburban life could be isolating for housewives. Many had moved far from their extended families to new suburbs. Letter writing was how they maintained those connections. Some women wrote several letters a week to mothers, sisters, old friends. This was their social network, literally written on stationery with a fountain pen. 8 p.m. Children's bedtime routine. Around 8 or 8:30 p.m., younger children begin their bedtime routine. Baths, which she supervises and often still gives to children under 7 or 8. One bathroom, multiple children. So this is carefully choreographed. Then into pajamas, teeth brushed, hair combed, prayers said. Many families incorporated prayer into the bedtime routine. She tucks each child in, maybe reads a story to the youngest, kisses them goodnight. The 1950s put enormous emphasis on routines and rituals. These bedtime routines were considered crucial for children's sense of security and proper development. Parenting books of the era were very prescriptive. Children should go to bed at the same time every night in the same way with the same rituals, order, and consistency were paramount. 9 p.m., adult evening. With children in bed, she finally has a moment to herself, almost. She might catch up on her magazine reading, Good Housekeeping, Ladies' Home Journal, or Woman's Day were the most popular. Or she might work on a craft project. The 1950s was huge for crafts, embroidery, decoupage, ceramics, making decorations for the home. These magazines are fascinating time capsules. They're full of recipes, decorating tips, fashion advice, and articles about marriage and motherhood. But they're also full of advertisements that reinforced very specific ideas about a woman's role. The perfect housewife who uses the right products, serves the right foods, and keeps her family happy through her domestic skills. The messaging was constant. Your worth as a woman is tied to your performance as a housewife. Are your whites the whitest? Is your husband's shirt collar ring-free? Do your children prefer your cooking to anyone else's? The pressure was relentless, and it came from every direction. Magazines, television, neighbors, mothers-in-law, the women's own internalized expectations. 10 p.m., preparing for tomorrow. Before bed, she does a final walkthrough of the house. Are all the lights off? Doors locked? She might set out breakfast dishes for the morning or prep something for tomorrow's dinner, thawing meat from the freezer, soaking beans, setting out ingredients. She checks on the children one more time, making sure they're covered, adjusting a blanket here, gently closing a door there. This is the quiet time of day, the only truly peaceful moment she might have had all day. The house is still. Everyone else is asleep, and she's probably exhausted. 10:30 p.m., bedtime. Finally, at around 10:30 or 11 p.m., she prepares for bed. She sets her hair, pin curls, or rollers that will need to be slept on uncomfortably, but will look perfect when brushed out in the morning. She removes her makeup with cold cream, brushes her teeth, and changes into her nightgown. Tomorrow she'll do it all again. And the day after that. And the day after that. Monday, washing. Tuesday, ironing. Wednesday, mending and marketing. Thursday and Friday, cleaning. Saturday, baking and more cleaning. Sunday, a big family dinner after church. The wheel turns endlessly. The reality behind the myth. So, what have we learned from our day as a 1950s housewife? First, the work was absolutely relentless. We're talking about 12 to 14-hour days of physical labor, much of it repetitive and tedious. Modern studies estimate that housewives in the 1950s worked an average of 55 hours per week on household tasks alone, and that's not counting childcare or emotional labor. Despite all the new appliances being marketed to save time, women weren't actually working less than their mothers or grandmothers had. They were just maintaining higher standards of cleanliness and homemaking. That gleaming kitchen? It didn't gleam by itself, those perfectly pressed clothes. Hours at the ironing board. That elaborate dinner? 2 hours of cooking those well-behaved children? Constant supervision and training. The 1950s housewife was skilled labor masquerading as leisure. The pressure cooker. Second, the psychological pressure was intense. The 1950s housewife was supposed to be perfectly groomed at all times, perpetually cheerful, an excellent cook, a skilled homemaker, a devoted mother, an attentive wife, and she was supposed to make it all look effortless. The smile had to stay on. The lipstick had to stay fresh. The complaints had to stay silent. Is it any wonder that the 1960s and 70s saw a massive social upheaval, with women pushing back against these impossible standards? Betty Friedan's 1963 book, The Feminine Mystique, called it the problem that has no name. The deep unhappiness and frustration of educated, capable women whose entire identity was supposed to be fulfilled by housework and children. Many 1950s housewives reported feeling isolated, depressed, and unfulfilled, but they were told these feelings were ungrateful or unfeminine. Doctors prescribed tranquilizers, mothers little helpers, at alarming rates. Valium became one of the most prescribed drugs in America. The diversity hidden from view. Third, we need to acknowledge that the image of the 1950s housewife we've been discussing is primarily white, middle class, and suburban. This was not every woman's experience. Black women, Latina women, immigrant women, and poor women were working outside the home in much higher numbers, often as domestic workers in other people's homes, as factory workers, as farm laborers. The idealized 1950s housewife was a specific cultural construct that didn't represent the full picture of women's lives. Many Black families had two working parents out of economic necessity, and often the mother was working as a domestic in a white household, doing the cooking, cleaning, and childcare for someone else's family, while her own children were in the care of relatives. The suburban dream was also largely inaccessible to families of color due to redlining, housing discrimination, and economic inequality. What did women gain? So, was anything good about this era for women? Well, it depends on how you look at it. For women who genuinely enjoyed homemaking and didn't chafe against the restrictions, the 1950s offered security, community, and clear social structures. Suburban neighborhoods were full of young families. Women formed close bonds with neighbors, coffee clutches, bridge clubs, PTA meetings. There was a sense of shared experience and community support. The emphasis on family life and children meant that motherhood was highly valued, at least rhetorically. Women's work in the home was acknowledged as important, even if it wasn't always respected. And for women who had lived through the Depression and World War II, the prosperity and stability of the 1950s felt miraculous. They had security, modern conveniences, enough food, peace. That wasn't nothing. What we can learn. But here's what I think is the real takeaway from our deep dive into a day in the life of a 1950s housewife. The danger isn't in the work itself. Someone has to cook, clean, and care for children. That work is real and valuable. The danger is in the narrowness of the role. When women are told that this is their only path to fulfillment, that this is the only proper role for them, that deviating from this makes them unfeminine or selfish, that's when it becomes oppressive. The 1950s housewife wasn't free to choose. She could be a housewife, or she could be a housewife. Those were the options. Modern women have more choices, though we still face pressures and impossible standards, just different ones. We can work outside the home or focus on homemaking or try to do both or chart our own unique path. The work of running a household and raising children hasn't gotten easier. In many ways it's gotten harder, but at least it's not the only option. The nostalgic illusion. I think there's a reason we sometimes look back at the 1950s with nostalgia. The images are beautiful. Those tidy houses, those elaborate meals, those put-together women, those close-knit communities. But we have to remember that images are curated. We're looking at the marketing, the ideal, the facade. Behind those perfect images were real women who were tired, frustrated, lonely, and told they weren't allowed to complain because they had everything a woman could want. The 1950s housewife deserves our respect for the enormous amount of skilled labor she performed day in and day out. But we shouldn't romanticize an era when women's choices were so limited, when her entire worth was determined by the shine on her kitchen floor and the crispness of her husband's shirt collar. We've spent a full day, over 30 minutes of your time, walking in the shoes of a 1950s housewife. From that 6 a.m. wake-up, through endless rounds of dishes, laundry, ironing, cooking, cleaning, and smiling, all the way to that late-night moment of setting her hair in rollers before collapsing into bed. It was exhausting just to talk about, wasn't it? The 1950s wasn't a simpler time. It was just a different time with different complications and different pressures. I hope this deep dive has given you a new appreciation for 1. The enormous amount of work that went into running a household before modern conveniences, and the fact that even with those conveniences, household labor is still real work that deserves respect. 2. How far we've come in terms of women's opportunities and choices. We should never take that progress for granted. And 3. The importance of questioning nostalgia. The past always looks simpler from a distance, but when you get up close, it's as complicated and messy as the present. Thank you so much for joining me on Yesterday, Revisited, for this journey back to 1955. I'm going to go appreciate my dishwasher, my washing machine, my wrinkle-free fabrics, and the fact that I can wear pants and leave the house without lipstick if I want to. If you enjoyed this deep dive into daily life in the past, please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the comments what other historical deep dives you'd like to see. Should we spend a day as a 1950s businessman? A 1920s flapper? Let me know. Thanks for watching, my fellow hosts, and I will see you next time on Yesterday Revisited. Make sure to like and subscribe.